My name's Linda Driver, and I'm a University of California Cooperative Extension Master Food Preserver. And today I want to talk to you about how to put up a batch of apricot jam. If you are a homeowner and you have one tree, you will get more apricots than you can eat, than your family can eat, and all your friends can eat. What do you do with all the rest of the apricots before they start falling on the ground and you have to pick them up? Well, making a batch of jam is one of the things you can do. Before we start, one of the things that you should always do when you're working in your kitchen is make sure that you wash your hands. And I think at this point in time, almost everybody in the world knows how, but just in case, you turn on running water, set to form, you get some soap, you lather up, and once you have a good lather going, you start washing your hands. You wash both sides of your hands. You wash between your fingers. You wash around your nails. You remember watching TV shows with doctors getting ready for surgery. They spend a lot of time on their nails. If you have a nail brush, you can use that to work around that area too. What you're trying to do is get all the places where germs, which could be on your hands, and your hands touch everything, can hide out. You also want to make sure you kind of go up around your wrist. And you should do this long enough that you could have sung Happy Birthday twice, or the alphabet song. I think everybody knows those two. But that's about the amount of time, 20 seconds at least. And after you've gotten done with all of that, then you have clean hands. And to maintain the cleanest hands, you should probably use a paper towel to dry your hands off with. Or a freshly washed towel. So, now we've done that, let's talk about the equipment that we're going to need today to make apricot jam. Whenever you are making jam or jelly, you can use the stuff that you have in your kitchen already. You really don't have to have any specialized equipment. Today I'm going to use this great big frying pan that I have because I want you to be able to see the process. Normally, if I'm making jam, I use a big pan like this that's nice and deep because you have a whole lot of ingredients that's going into your jam and you need to bring it to a rolling boil, which requires you to stir and not be able to stir down the bubbles, and that usually takes a lot of room. But today, because I want you to be able to see what we're doing, I'm going to use that pan. Now, for processing your jars, there are two things. You're probably more familiar with the water bath canner, and that's what this thing is. They usually are either galvanized, they're usually aluminum or enamelware. They usually have a rack in the bottom that you can sit the jars on, and then you can immerse it, and it goes down, and you put water in, and the water goes all around the jars and over the top of the jars. If you don't have one of those, you don't have to. If you can get some extra rings, and you can put them together with wire ties off of your bread bags, and you can make a thing that will go in the bottom of your pot, and you can sit your jars on top of this. The key thing is that your jars are not sitting on the bottom of the pan, and that you can have water all around the jars. Now that's for a water bath canner. I am going to use today the steam canner. And a steam canner uses less water. You can actually get more jars in a steam canner than you can a regular water bath canner. And it brings it up to a boil. And when the gauge on the top of the steam canner gets into the green zone, that's when we start counting our time. So these jars are in here because I use the steam canner to sterilize them so that they are ready for the jam when we're ready to do that. Other pieces of equipment that you're going to need a spoon. Usually, many people use a funnel to fill their jars. I prefer to pour them in, but we'll demonstrate both. This is a handy-dandy device. This is well worth having. This is used to pick up your jars and move them from hot to where they sit and cool without burning your fingers. A really good thing. We also need timers. This is a timer that measures 1 minute. And we're going to need that when we are bringing our pectin and our fruit up to its first boil before we add the sugar. This one measures longer amounts of time, and we will use that when we're doing our processing time. Then the other things that you will need to make apricot jam. I'm using a blender. You could use a food processor. You could chop it up with your knife, but the blender is easier. Because we are making jam, we don't have to have big pieces of fruit. We actually really want smaller pieces of fruit so that it will spread nicely on your toast. You're going to need liquid measuring cups. You're going to need a dry measuring cup to measure things like your sugar. And let's see, we have the lids and rings that we're going to need. We need, for the recipe, we need lemon juice, a little dab of butter, the apricots, sugar, and pectin. One of the things that people don't know, if they haven't made jam or jelly a lot, is not all pectins are the same. So when you are buying your pectin, whatever kind you buy, you must read the recipe and follow the recipe. Don't change the recipe. If you change it, you may not get what you want, and it may not be safe. Most packages of pectin have instructions for how to make your jam, and then they have various recipes that tell you how many apricots to buy, what you have to do to them, how much sugar you need, all the things that you need. So, I think we are ready to start. As you can see, I had previously started preparing the apricots because it takes a little while to do that. Now, when we're talking about making jam or jelly, what you want in your fruit is you want fully ripe apricots. So you want apricots that you would not mind eating right now. You do not want to put in the jar. If you have ones that have bruises or something, you want to cut those out. That's not something you want. But when we are making apricot jam, one of the nice things about it, apricots have nice big seeds. They are part of what is called stone fruits. And stone fruits are cherries, peaches, nectarines, apricots, pluots, and some of the other varieties they made. But you have a relatively big, hard seed for the size of the fruit. And apricots are very easy, as you can see, to get prepared. Because you're making jam, you don't have to take the skin off. There are some things that you do have to take skin off, but this is not one of them. So, I am going to finish opening the rest of these and put them in the blender. The recipe calls for 5 cups of blended apricots. And so, we are right there. So the recipe calls for 5 cups of apricots and 1/4 cup of lemon juice. So I added lemon juice to the stuff that I had pre-done so that it would not turn brown, because that's the purpose of the lemon juice in this recipe. Fruit prepared. We need to put it in the pan we're going to cook in, and we need to add the package of pectin, and we will need to thoroughly stir that in. And we also will add a little dab of butter, because what that does is it cuts down on foam. Okay, so we added the package of pectin and the little dab of butter, and now we stir it in, and we keep stirring because we've got this on high heat because we want to bring it up to temperature quickly. That's what it says to do, and we do not want it to burn. So one way to get it to burn is to forget to keep stirring and to go off and do something else. Not a recommended thing. It's been about 4 minutes, and the apricot and the pectin mix is coming to a boil. And all it has to do, I don't have to have it at a boil for a long time, but it's there right now if I leave it alone for a minute, but I don't want to leave it because it will burn. the apricot stuff has come up to a boil, and now I'm going to add the sugar. And you add the sugar all at once, and you get busy stirring, because you do not want it to burn, and you do want it to mix in. And I'm pushing my luck with this thing because it's full pan. So it has been about 10 minutes now, and the sugar and apricot mixture has gotten to the place where it is considered a rolling boil. So since it's a rolling boil, it needs to cook for 1 minute. So I'm going to turn my timer over here and wait until it gets to the bottom. If you don't have a timer, you can count to 60. One for every turn around the pan. But I've got a timer, so I'm going to use that. You can also use your phone, whatever, for a 1 minute timer. But you do not stop stirring. The 1 minute timer has run out, so I'm turning the heat off. And I'll keep stirring for a minute or so more just to let it settle down. And then I will skim the foam off the top. Okay. The foam, there's nothing wrong with the foam. It tastes good. I put it in a bowl like what I'm doing right now and put it on my toast the next day. But it is prettier in the jar if you don't have foam. So that's why we scoop it off the top. Okay, so we're taking our jars out of the steam canner and take them over to where we're going to fill them. So now we need to fill the jars, and we need to pay attention to how much apricot jam we put in each jar. And this is one of the places where it helps if you can be really neat. Now, that's what the funnel is for, and many people use it, but I find I would really rather do it without the funnel. So I'll show you what it looks like without the funnel. Okay, after we've filled all the jars, then we want to go around and wipe the rims to make sure they're clean. And before we've done that, we should go around and make sure that we have 1/4 inch of headspace, which is what is required for these. And so if you put this handy dandy little device in there and it just almost touches the top of the jam, you're in good shape. So we do that, and then we put the lids and rings on the jars. Modern lids don't need to be preheated. Older ones in the past had to be, but they've got a better sealant these days. So you put it on, you put the ring on, and you tighten it to finger tight, which is just like that. And we will do all of those, and then we'll move them to the steam canner for processing. Okay, so now we're going to turn the heat on under the steam canner. We've got our jars sitting here. They're not touching each other. There's room for the steam to flow around them. And we put the lid on the steam canner, and we put the vent on the opposite side of where we are, because we don't want to have that coming up where we look at it. And that is one of the indicators that you're ready, is when there's a solid stream of steam coming out the back. And then the handy dandy gauge on the top. When the little arrow gets to the green, then we start counting time. And it's going to be 10 minutes for apricot jam. And before I forget to mention it, apricot jam is very slow to set, so it may take up to 2 weeks before it sets enough for you to call it jam. You might be thinking it's syrup, but don't think you failed until you wait long enough to see if it will actually be jam. Okay, our timer has gone off, and so our jam has processed for the right amount of time. So I'm going to turn off the heat, and I am going to remove the lid carefully, and we'll just let it sit here and rest for 5 minutes before we move it to where it's going to sit for the next 24 hours undisturbed. And I probably will leave it there for the entire 2 weeks that I'm waiting for it to gel completely, so that it is jam and not syrup. So, this is our apricot jam. Okay, after our 5-minute rest, We lift the jars out of the steam canner and we set them aside where we will not disturb them for at least 24 hours. And when I'm ready to put them on the shelf, I will put a label on top that says what it is and when I made it, so that later on when I'm going, what is this, I will know. Thank you very much. Happy canning.